Each badger marks the track with its own scent.
His black legs are short but very powerful for digging. The name badger probably comes from the French word bêcher, meaning digger.
And hello, everybody. Welcome along, Cricket Badger podcast time. Very good to have you with us. James and Lucas with you. And we're looking back. There's loads of things going on in the world of cricket at the moment. We've just seen the end of a compelling third test at Lord's, which was absolutely brilliant. We'll talk about that. We'll also talk a little bit about West Indies against Australia, with the Aussies winning 3-0 in the Caribbean. Before we get on to that, before I say hello to Lucas, I'd like to welcome on board Match Bingo. They are, it's actually really good. I've been playing it. Gamble responsibly, of course. It is gambling, but they're a very, very good site. If you quote Cricket 200 when you open your account there, you'll get 200% additional funds in your account. So if you put in a tenner, you'll get 30 quid in there, etc. And they have bingo cards, and they have all of the various things that might happen in a match. And you basically, it crosses them off as those things happen. And if you get a line, you win money. If you get a full house, you win money. So there's cricket on there as well as football. It's expanding all the time. Match Bingo is on as a sponsor, as are Seatfrog.com as well. So we've got two sponsors at the moment of the Cricket Badger podcast, Seatfrog.com and Match Bingo. More of those as we go through. We'll play an advert for each of those as we go through this podcast. Lucas, though, hello, how are you?
Hello, James. I'm doing well. I'm very excited with that new sponsor. I can't wait personally to play that. I do love my gambling, gamble responsible. So good to have them on board as well. Fantastic.
And we'll start off, though, Lucas, with England's triumph at Lord's. And I absolutely loved that test match. Don't get me wrong, I like fours and sixes like anybody else does, and I like a bit of drama and what have you. But that was, to me, we often make the comparison, test matches to ODIs to T20. I know a lot of people use food as kind of like T20s being a McDonald's burger and test matches being like a proper steak. I always use the kind of feature film to TV advert kind of comparison, but there wasn't the fours and sixes. It was a track that was not necessarily the easiest to bat on. We saw the best players get runs. We saw the best bowlers take wickets. But it was a match that kind of went all the way through to the deep into day 5 until that final wicket when the ball just span back onto poor old Mohammad Siraj's stumps. Basically, it was both results possible: an England winner and an India win. I must admit, I felt really sorry. I know a lot of people don't like Siraj. Non-Indians don't like Siraj because he plays aggressive. His heart's on his sleeve. But I tell you what, if he's on your team, you love him. If he's against you, you don't like him. He's one of those kind of players. But I thought both he and Bumrah really did dig in alongside Jadeja. I've seen a lot of people blaming Jadeja for not getting across the line. To me, that's complete nonsense. And when people compare Jadeja's innings to Stokes at Headingley, not that you want to be reminded about that innings, Lucas, but it was a different track entirely. You know, when Ben Stokes was going to hit out against Australia, the ball was still coming onto the bat. He was able to do that on that surface at Lord's. I think Jadeja did it pretty much dead on. You know, against I've seen people say that he should have taken Bashir down. Well, Bashir was getting a little bit of turn. And, you know, with the left-hander, the kind of rough outside of his off stump didn't make that easy at all. I thought he played a very canny game and was well supported by the tail. If some of the top order had kind of learnt or could have learnt a little bit from Jadeja and Bumrah and Siraj in kind of selling their wickets dear, then India would have got home and hosed quite easily. But overall, Lucas, I thought it was a really good test. I thought it was just compelling viewing from start to finish.
Well, who would have thought England would play traditional cricket, James, after this Bazball nonsense? No, it was a classic test match, very gritty, and that's how personally I like my test matches. I don't like to see a thousand runs scored on one day or whatnot in one innings. So this was very good. I thought.
Which day did 1,000 runs get scored in the day? I can't remember that one.
Well, England get close. You know, there's been some innings in Pakistan and whatnot where they're about 500, 600 in one day. But no, this I thought the pitch was great. I thought the pitch was very, very good. It had both for bowlers and for batsmen, and that's where the game's at its best, when there's an even contest. As far as the match result, I think this is, again, I think India, this is one India lost. They could easily be 3-0 up, James. They should have won the first test. They won the second test pretty well. Should have won this test. This series should be over. Bumrah, he's only played 2 games. He's got over 50. He's got over 10 wickets in 2 games, 2 5-wicket hauls. Unbelievable. But I felt that India really should have won this. Now, with your point with Jadeja, now let's go back to a couple of years ago to the Ashes with Cummins and Lyon. I don't have a problem with what Jadeja did, but with Cummins and Lyon, Cummins trusted Lyon more. Now, you can probably say maybe Lyon is better than Bumrah. I think Bumrah is a little bit better technically, but Cummins trusted the tail, and they picked off runs where Jadeja declined. And I thought those runs that Jadeja declined, I think they probably could have won the game if they scored those runs.
I disagree. I disagree. I don't think Bumrah and Siraj are great. I think they've got a defence, but they haven't got much else. And I was actually on commentary and I was saying, bowl a short ball to him. He can't refuse the short ball. Every time the ball was short, he kind of wafted a kind of a hook at it. Siraj really did apply himself. I felt with both of those batters, Lucas, that there was only a certain number of balls they were going to be able to face. And obviously, ultimately, they exhausted that supply. I think, the one thing I have taken from this series so far is the extremes of reaction from England supporters. You know, you win the first test after a big chase at Headingley. Everybody, this is an amazing side. You lose the second test at Edgbaston. Oh my goodness, everybody should go. And then the difference 22 runs makes is massive, because if England had lost that, if that ball had spun past Siraj's leg stump and they'd managed to get another 22 runs, there would have been a massive negative response from England, because Shoaib Bashir got that final wicket and England was celebrating. It kind of just avoids that inquest, and everybody's kind of now thinking, well, England are amazing again. Yeah, there is a fine line in sport sometimes between losing your job almost and having a statue erected for you. It seems to me, 22 runs can make a lot of difference. I thought there was a lot wrong with the way England played. I thought the team selection was weird. I'd looked at that 11 and I thought that bowling attack, there were question marks against every bowler in that bowling attack. You got Jofra Archer coming back into Test cricket for the first time. Question marks about how he was going to fare. Really impressed with Jofra, and I love to see him back in. Hopefully he stays fit for a long, long time, because he's a tremendous player. Chris Woakes, great record at Lords. I can understand why they selected him, but he looks like he's on the downward to me, and I think he's on his way out. I don't think he'll play that many more Test matches, Chris Woakes. And it was notable on the final day that Ben Stokes took a lot of time to get to Chris Woakes. And if you've got a bowler in your lineup that's got 32 wickets at 12 at that venue, and you're bowling him pretty much at the last chance, 2 overs before lunch, that kind of says something about how much Chris Woakes was performing there. A lot of question marks still about Shoaib Bashir. He's obviously going to miss the 4th test. We'll come on to that later. But Dawson coming in, but purely because of that injury. And then you've got Brydon Carse, who hobbled a little bit through the 2nd test. Good to see him looking fully fit. And I thought the spell he bowled at the start of the 2nd innings for India on the 4th evening was as good as I've seen him bowl. I thought he was absolutely superb. So he kind of question mark disappeared for Brydon Carse. And then Ben Stokes, of course, groin injury, it seemed like to me on day 1. You're kind of thinking, is he going to survive this test? And then he bowled forever on day 5. So good to see him fit. But yeah, Ben Stokes almost epitomizes what I'm talking about the ups and downs of people's opinions, because I saw a lot of people saying, well, he's averaging only something like 26 or something with the bat over the last 2 years. Is this the end for Ben Stokes, captaincy, blah, blah, blah? Is this the end for Bazball? We'd have had all of those questions posed if India had got 22 more runs. But because he inflicted the run out on Rishabh Pant because he bowled forever on day 5, and because he got a few runs along the way, he ended up being man of the match. And everybody's saying that he's the second coming for about the 15th time. You know, people comparing him to both to Flintoff and obviously Ben Stokes making up that triumvirate of all-rounders post-war. And he's a brilliant player. Don't get me wrong. I think he's a tremendous player, Ben Stokes. But it just shows you how, not fickle, but how quickly people's opinions change. And one minute you're the golden boy, the next minute you are, you know, is he worth his place in the side? It's only a couple of test matches ago that Ollie Pope put back-to-back centuries on the board against Zimbabwe and in the first test against India. Now, every time I look at people picking their teams for the fourth test, Ollie Pope's the one to fall by the wayside. I'm not totally convinced by Ollie Pope, but he averages 41 at number 3. It's his best position. Number 3 has been a long-term problem for England in terms of who goes in there. If you've got somebody averaging 41 there, I think you're reluctant to throw them away. I mean, I'm sure you see it in Australian cricket as well, Lucas. But 1 minute the glass is half full, 1 minute the glass is half empty, and it doesn't take too much to kind of turn that glass around, does it?
Yeah, the one thing, if England would have lost, would have been Ben Stokes. I had a huge problem with the way he captained this match. I had a problem with the way Gill captained this match. How Jofra, Carse, Stokes got through that uninjured, I've got absolutely no idea. They bowled way too much. He didn't rotate his bowlers enough for me. In fact, he didn't even do it at all. So how they got away with injury is an absolute miracle, because it's bowling 20 overs or 40 overs in back-to-back tests. That's fine, but when you're doing it twice in the same test, back-to-back, that's when stress factors can come in. That's when fatigue can come in. So how they got away with that was absolutely incredible. I can't believe that. I can't believe there's no injury. Now, with Ben Stokes' captaincy, I said to you, what's he learned from the Cummins and Lyon situation? This is where I got a little bit upset with Jadeja, where he should have taken those singles. Stokes didn't really learn anything. He didn't do anything different. He did the exact same thing he did to Siraj and Bumrah. I admire their bravery as well. What he did to Lyon, and what he did to Cummins, except Cummins took the single. So for me, he didn't really learn much. He didn't really do anything different from that test match that he lost. So if they would have lost that, I think most of the blame would have been on Ben Stokes. With his rotation of bowlers, like I said, I'll say it again. I can't believe there's no injuries. He had Harry Brook, he had Joe Root. Joe Root only got used because Bashir got injured. Now we can laugh and joke about Harry Brook. Well, he's there. He's, from what I've seen, if I worked with Harry Brook, say, right, what's the one thing you can get going? What's the one thing that you have? I think he's got good outright seam. When he did bowl last week, in all seriousness, he did get a lot of shape. He did get good shape, bowling upright seam. So I think that should have been an option. He should have at least bowled 5-6 overs, take the load off Jofra, Ropes, particularly Carse. Carse, I think, is the one that needs to be protected. If you're taking him to Australia, out of all these bowlers, Wood, Jofra, Carse, I think Carse can do the most damage, in my opinion. So I'm a little bit disappointed the way Ben Stokes captained and rotated his bowlers, or lack of rotation.
I've always been impressed with Carse, and I quite like that. Because we talk about the Ashes, like we say, too much, but obviously it's now on the horizon, and the Ashes can be quite. We saw a little bit of needle in the India test, the third test. I don't mind that at all. By the way, I think it shows players care. I think it shows, as long as it doesn't go too far, as long as it kind of, we don't see fisticuffs and people kind of lamping each other out there. But I don't mind the odd eyeball and the few finger waves and a few little kind of like comebacks and stuff. I think that's great. I think it makes Test cricket a little bit more, it makes it exciting. That third evening, when Zach Crawley was wasting time, and Jasprit Bumrah and Siraj and Shubman Gill were getting angrier and angrier. He thought, like I tweeted on that evening, the boot had been on the other foot, it'd have been exactly the same the other way around. They know that. And I thought what was quite good about the third test was there was that eyeball to eyeball stuff, but they walked off the pitch kind of arm in arm almost. There obviously wasn't any long-term animosity. It was heat of the battle stuff. And Brydon Carse played his part in that. And I think, in the Ashes, where if it does get a little bit tense, he's not somebody that will kind of back down from a fight. He'll stick his chest out and he'll stare in the eyes of an Aussie, and he won't back down. And I think that's a good thing to have. So going to be interesting to see that.
If James, if there's going to be something, there's a question of when, not if. I thought it was absolute box office when the Zach Crawley situation. Now remember the third test against Australia and India. Consist and Khawaja did the same thing, and then
everybody does it, Luke. Everybody does it. It's part of your job as an opener. If you're going in for a little mini session at the end of the day, obviously that was 1 or 2 overs that we're talking about at the end of day 3, but it could be 5 or 6 or something. If you can face 6 less balls than you need to, you're going to invent somebody standing up behind the bowler's arm. You're going to invent. I mean, he did get hit on the finger, but you're not telling me he got hurt with that ball on the finger. And he used every trick in the book there. I mean, the only thing he didn't do really was tie his shoelaces 8 times, wasn't it? But that's your job as an opener, to kind of protect your team and to get through till close and to face as few balls as possible. And like I say, if Shubman Gill had been out there doing it, he would have done exactly the same thing. But absolute box office. Bulldozer Williams, hello to you. You can message us if you're watching on YouTube. England, this is India. Is great. Always good to watch. I think in English conditions, Bulldozer, there's not a lot between these two sides. Some very good players on both sides of the contest, and it is really good to watch. And I've been looking forward to this series for quite some time, knowing it was coming. And it's not let me down yet. We've had 3 really good test matches, and the third one I think was the most enjoyable of the lot. So, roll on the next one. I think it's been absolutely superb. Balls are being called into question. Shubman Gill was mentioning Zach Crawley's sphericals in that little exchange, but I saw the joke because he basically said grow a pair, basically, to put it politely. And I saw somebody say if Zach Crawley did grow a pair of balls, then Shubman would only been asked them to be changed in 10 overs time, because the Duke's ball has not necessarily lived up to being a kind of A1 grade ball. We're seeing those balls changed a lot, but that's for another day. Just one before we move on. Slow over rates. England got fined 2 points in the World Test Championship. I don't think that's going to worry him too much. We know Ben Stokes isn't, doesn't even understand the table, but also got fined 10% of their match fee. Didn't see India getting fined, and they were just as slow. So I'm not quite sure which calculation they used to differentiate between the two sides. But the over rates at Lords were absolutely scandalous. We were losing easily 8 overs every day, if not more. I think it was double figures on one day that we lost. Yeah, it's your job. Part of your job is to score runs, part of your job is to field the ball, part of your job is to bowl the overs in the right time, not just to bowl to get wickets, but to kind of get through those overs. And we know they can do it, because when we get a session where there's only maybe 5 overs possible to bowl and they want to try and get a 6th in, the bowling side will be changing round like absolute headless chickens to get those overs in, running back to their marks. I'm not expecting everybody to run back to their marks, but it's kind of like a happy medium between, we see meetings, we see people just ambling around. The umpires don't do anything about it. They've got no power anymore, but I just get on with it and bowl the overs a bit faster.
As much as the Crawley and Bumrah, situation was box office, there was supposed to be 3 overs bowled. We only got 1. That hurts Test cricket.
I think now, more like 2 maybe, but we only got 1.
Yeah. 3 pushing it, but 2. But the point is, this is a joke. This is one of the worst things in cricket. It's clearly Ben Stokes doesn't care, because he's been penalised before about, I think Joe Root in previous years. So England don't care about it. The only way you're going to see them care is if you put in-game penalties or suspensions. That's the only way you're going to fix this. Now, you might think it's harsh, but my opinion is every over that you're behind is 10 runs. That's for me. I can guarantee you over rates will go up real quick. Or suspensions, suspend a captain for a game. This is unexcusable. As much as this series has been great, I want to see more of it. And delaying the game hurts Test cricket, not just this series, but any other series.
most people agree with me when I moan about slow over rates on Twitter, but there are people who say, well, it's an amazing match. What are you complaining about? We're seeing an amazing match. Well, I want to see more of this amazing match. If I've paid a ticket, Lord's prices are really expensive. And if I've taken my family and I've kind of thinking I'm going to get 90 overs and I'm only going to get 78, I think I want to see a little bit more of this exciting cricket, please. And I just think, it's a spectator sport. You kind of England make a big thing about being entertaining. Well, entertain over 90 overs in a day. We always play the extra half an hour regardless, and that's supposed to be an add-on, but that's now part of the hours of play, really. And I just get on with it and bowl your overs. I don't think it's that hard. And bowl a few more overs of spin if you need to. Get round quickly and get those overs in. And I think if I would prefer to see 90 overs of exciting cricket rather than 78 overs of exciting cricket, but that's maybe just me. I'm going to play the advert for our new partners now. Thank you very much indeed to Match Bingo for coming on board. Here's a little bit of a taster about what Match Bingo can do for you if you partake.
Let's go.
Thanks indeed to Match Bingo for the support of the Cricket Badger podcast. As I say, quote Cricket 200, and you'll get a 200% bonus. For sake of argument, you invest £10 when you first deposit, then you'll get effectively £30 in your account, and that's for new and existing customers of Match Bingo. So that code, if you've been playing Match Bingo for a while, you can still use that code and still benefit from that deposit offer. So thank you to them for their support of the Cricket Badger podcast. Is there anything else, Lucas, that you would like to add about the third test?
Yeah, there's one thing that really did annoy me. Now you briefly mentioned was the ball. Shedman Gill, for whatever reason, he changed the ball when the ball was seaming and swinging. Now, as a bowler, if I saw that and I saw my captain trying to change the ball, I'd be saying, "Excuse me, Mr. Gaffer, why would you want to do that? I've got the best chance of taking wickets with this ball. I understand it went soft, but just because it went soft doesn't mean you have to change it." So I can't explain why he did that as a captain. When you had the ball swinging and seaming, and then when the new ball came, it stopped. It stopped. So the advantage went away. So that was absolutely poor captaincy. You just don't do that. You have to read the game. And the ball was all swinging and seaming all over the place. And I'm surprised Bumrah, Siraj, Deep, they didn't tell him. I'm so surprised at that, because I can guarantee you, if that was Hazelwood or Stark that saw Cummins change that ball, they'd be going over and saying, "Hey, listen, you can change it after it stops moving." So that got me, that one. I don't understand why he did that.
England have made one change, enforced change, ahead of the fourth test at Old Trafford. Shoaib Bashir, who's obviously broken his finger, came on and bowled and obviously took the final wicket. But he's going to step aside in the fourth test. They brought in Liam Dawson. And I like that change. I'd have made that change anyway, I have to be honest, because I just don't see it in Shoaib Bashir. Most of his wickets get caught on the boundary. I know it's still a mode of dismissal, and I know he's taken wickets, and I know he's taken lots of wickets in his fledgling career. I think there's a future for Shoaib Bashir, but I don't think it necessarily will do him that much harm to step away for a bit and then come back in as a better bowler. Liam Dawson might not take 8 for 23, and he might not pull up any trees, but he's been an MVP in county cricket for 2 years of the last 3, I think, and he bats as well. He will bat at number 8, and with the chances of Gus Atkinson coming back into that side at number 9, that means that England are batting properly deep, and Jofra probably at 10, and then I don't know, 11. But anyway, so that was the one change. I would myself, and we've had this chat so many times on this podcast, I think it's time's up for Zach Crawley. It's all right getting a century against Zimbabwe, with all due respect, but when he's tested against top quality, the other big two out the big three, and they've got serious talent. When you got Bummer and you got Siraj and you got Reddy, etc. When you come up against Australia, we know that they've got tremendous opening bowlers as well. It's not easy, and you need to have a technique, and you need to decide on your plans, and you need to be. I thought his innings in the first innings at Lords was as bad as I've seen him, and we're kind of into 57 Test matches, I think now. And I kind of thinking, well, what are you actually learned from that experience, from the 50 odd games you've played? What evidence is there that you're actually any better now than you were when you first came into this side? And how have you applied those changes? There was nothing for me there. And in the second innings, I said that he showed bravery because he was obviously getting hit on the hands and he was kind of being made to jump around a little bit. But he also got very lucky, edged past his own stumps and edged for boundaries. And then as soon as they changed, the opening bowlers came off, who seemed to be kind of really getting him to hop around. And you thought, well, fair play to you. It might not have been the best innings I've ever seen, but you've kind of battled your way through that. Reddy comes on, slower bowler, chucks him one wide outside the off stump. What does he do? Chases it and gets out. And you could predict that a mile off. You could predict it. I mean, and if I can predict it, the bowling attack can predict it. And you're thinking, why with Bashir and Crawley? I'd say thanks for your time. Go back to your counties. Work on your game. This is what we want you to do. I'd maybe even take them to the Ashes. The thing with Crawley is that he's a long-term project. It's all kind of a bit ego. It's kind of invested so much in him with an eye to this tour to Australia in the winter and the Ashes and the big tour. And they have seen him as being a big, tall opener that can get above the bounce and stuff like that and play. And he may be dangerous down there or may not. Proof will be in the pudding. But the proof from this 5 match series so far is that he hasn't got a game to counter a very strong opening bowling attack and throws his wicket away far too quickly. And he kind of doesn't sell it dearly enough. But we will see, but they're obviously going to keep with him, and I think he's going to be. I tweeted, I think, what was the tweet? He'd gone past Derek Randall. He'd gone past. There's a whole host of really good former English players that he's just gone past. And if he plays through the Ashes series, he goes above Ted Dexter. He goes above Darren Gough. We're talking about proper Test players. We're talking about players who can look back on their careers, some of who have been captain. And can look back with real pride and distinction at their stats and their careers and what they contributed to English cricket. Zach Crawley, for me, doesn't deserve to be mentioned in the same breath as them. And he's going to go past them in Test caps. And just one final point, Lucas. Sorry, I think it was one of the guys on the Wisdom podcast was saying he owes a lot to Ben Stokes because he's obviously been playing through Bazball. And they obviously like what they see. They know that maybe 3 times out of 10, he can get them off to a fairly solid start and quick start. And they're happy to kind of maybe take some of the failures to get those days. When he then goes 20 matches without doing anything, that maybe looks a little bit less of a kind of the upsides are fewer. But if it had been a more traditional captain, more traditional captain than Ben Stokes, with the Bazball kind of attacking starts that England have been looking for, Zach Crawley would have been put out to pasture probably after 20 matches. He's played another 37 more. He owes a lot of those Test caps to the loyalty that Bazball has shown to the players that they've had. I don't think he'd be still opening for Australia. Having said that, I've been watching Sam Constas for Australia, Lucas, and he is like a poor man's Zach Crawley.
Yeah. To answer your question, no. If that was Steve Waugh, Ricky Ponting, I don't think Crawley would have even got 10 games, to be honest. Probably same as Sam Constas. If Australia are going to produce green top pitchers, which they will, there's no doubt in my mind they will. And if you got Zach Crawley playing against Stark, Boland, Cummins playing away from his body, not just Crawley, but any English batsman, they're going to get rolled pretty quickly. Crawley tried everything in that first innings. He was batting out of his crease. There was one moment where he was batting out of his crease and he almost jumped back. Weird. But it's always good to try new things, but he wasn't trying new things just for that. It was desperation, James. He was so desperate and he was out of ideas. He didn't know what to do. And when you're out of ideas as a bowler, you have to go back to the drawing board. And to your credit, Zach Crawley was out of ideas. He was desperate. He didn't know what to do. He has to go back to the drawing board, even if that's with county or English Lions tours. He just needs to get out of that environment because it's doing more harm than good. And if you've got potential batsmen, especially openers, are doing really well in the county, they're also suffering a little bit, James, because they're making runs. Yeah. And they're seeing this guy get chance after chance after chance. What if it was them? I'll mention a name, Tom Abel. He's not an opener, but imagine if Tom Abel got all these chances that Crawley got. So
I'll tell you now, if they'd given Alex Lees the amount of chances that Zach Crawley has had, he would have got better stats over the same period. I almost guarantee that, because Leesy can bat.
Yeah.
I mean that innings in the first innings, it was bizarre, because kind of an opener should have a strategy, should have a plan. Yeah, Ben Duckett failed at Lords. In the great scheme of things, he failed at Lords, but at least he knew what he was trying to do and he was sticking to his plan. Whereas Zach Crawley, 1 minute was defending the ball, then he was leaving the ball, then he was defending the ball, then he kind of got bored and thought, I need to score some runs, so he danced down and missed. And it was just kind of like, it was almost like he was rolling a dice inside his own head. Attack, defend, play. He didn't quite know what he was supposed to be doing out there, and that it didn't fill me with any confidence whatsoever. But let's move on from Zach Crawley, because we've talked about him a lot on this podcast, and I don't want to kind of feel like I'm bullying him and that. But I just don't understand. Just give
opinions, James. That's it. Just opinions. That's it.
Yeah, I don't get it. I don't get what I mean, I do get what they see in him, because he tends to be against poor attacks on flat tracks. He does well, against quality opposition. He just looks like he's not built for Test cricket for me. Anyway, let's move on from England against India. We got two. It's a brilliant series. It really is. I have absolutely loved every second of it, and we have still got potentially 10 more days to go. So that is very, very welcome, and we're looking forward to that. Thank you to seatfrog.com for their support of the Cricket Badger podcast. After this little advert from them, we'll come back and we'll talk about West Indies against Australia.
We all want a bit of that first-class lifestyle, right?
Well, with Seatfrog, you can travel first class on trains for a lot less.
We're talking up to 60% off first-class tickets using our upgrade options.
Think eBay, but for train tickets.
Win your upgrade and you can enjoy food, drink, and a whole lot of legroom. We've got the alcohol.
It's beyond simple to sign up and start bidding. Just download Seatfrog and upgrade your ticket today.
And thank you very much to seatfrog.com. Download their app. You'll get, if you quote Cricket Frog, you'll get £5 off your first booking. And it's a very good app. You can book your tickets on there, and you can also get yourself upgraded for cheap on there to first class. Stretch out, get yourself food and drink and what have you, and travel in style with seatfrog.com. So anyway, we moved to the Caribbean, Lucas, and I was watching the final day. I mean, it was compelling stuff. West Indies obviously getting rolled for the second lowest total ever. And Mitchell Starc with the pink ball. I mean, I love Mitchell Starc. I know him from when he played for Yorkshire in 2012. I haven't seen him since 2012, but he was a really good lad when he came across and played at Headingley. And it's been great to see him getting wickets, 400 wickets in Test cricket. And that was his 100th Test match. And with the pink ball, there is nobody better, is there?
Oh, absolutely not even close. I think he just loves the feel of it. He loves the seam position. It was a different pink ball this time. It was a Duke's pink ball, which is not really used. I think Australia are really the only country that embraced pink ball cricket, to be honest, James. So it was a different kind of ball. It was more dark. It was more darker than a light Kookaburra ball. But that meant absolutely nothing to Mitchell Starc, swinging it all over the place. Because of his left arm, now I'm a right arm bowler, because he's left armed, when he gets that swing away from the right hander, into the right hander, is impossible to play if he gets swing. That's what happened. He doesn't even swing it that much, but when he does, it's impossible. He gets a lot of bowls, a lot of LBWs. He does leak runs, but that's the way he plays. He's an attacking bowler. And when he gets it right, he's as dangerous as any bowler in the world. I think, in my opinion, with Mitchell Starc, I think he's the second greatest Australian fast bowler, in my opinion, behind Glenn McGrath. No disrespect to Cummins, but the last 2 years, what sets Starc away from Cummins is his pace. Even at his age, he still says the same amount of pace, around 145, 140, 90 miles per hour in the Old English Dictionary. He still keeps that pace for long spells. So I think that's what, over the last 2 years, he's probably just behind Bumrah and Rabada for me.
I was going to ask you that because I tweeted during the third test. I've always said, I'm older than you. I'm an old git. I used to love watching Malcolm Marshall, West Indian fast bowler. For me, he's always been the best fast bowler I've ever seen. So I'm playing a bit for Hampshire as well in the flesh, but obviously test matches as well. And I just thought he had a little bit of everything, sort of really good rhythm, and he was just fantastic. I've put Bumrah above him. I think Bumrah is the best fast bowler I have ever seen in my lifetime. I'm obviously not going to go back to SF Barnes and stuff because I've never seen them bowl, but I just think Bumrah is just special. And Mitchell Starc is right up there as well for me. I think I don't know how he's viewed in Australia, but I get the impression, kind of around the world and certainly in England, that I think he's maybe undervalued. I think because he's quite a nice guy. He doesn't. There's no histrionics with Mitchell Starc. He doesn't kind of beat his chest and so he doesn't get on as many highlights reels for things like that. I think people totally don't get just how good he is.
Yeah, he's outside cricket is boring, but trust me, when he's stood up, he doesn't take a back step. I remember a field game, New South Wales, where poor old Peter Neville declared on him when he was on at 87. He walked into the tent, threw his bat, threw his gloves, threw his helmet. Peter Neville was halfway down on the other side of the oval. So he can be sledgy, he can be mouthy. I wouldn't have liked Crawley to do that to Starc, because I think Starc probably would have bowled that ball anyway. But no, I agree with you. I don't think he's much love compared to a McGrath, compared to a Warne. Dennis Lilly's very respected here. Jeff Thompson's also very respected when it comes to pure fast bowling. So Starc, to the general public, he's a little bit underrated because he's boring. He's never in the headlines. They do rate Cummins more. But like I said, the last 2 years, he's just taken his game to another step. He's just been unreal. He's the bowler that you'd pick over Cummins in Asia. We've seen that in the Sri Lankan series. We see that in India. So I think the public are not as warm to Starc as to those bowlers. Now, to your credit with Malcolm Marshall, Courtney Walsh, Curtly Ambrose, I think Bumrah's better than them. The Dale Steins, the James Anderson, Stuart Broad, I think he's miles above them.
I just think with Jasprit Bumrah, Lucas, I just think that it's almost like every ball you can see him taking a wicket. And I don't think I've ever watched a bowler who I think is going to take a wicket every single ball he bowls. Malcolm Marshall bowled bad balls. Malcolm Marshall bowled too wide sometimes. He had bad spells. Same with Dale Steyn, same with pretty much everybody you can mention, but he's so metronomic. I mean, there is the odd bad ball with Jasprit Bumrah, of course there is, but he knows exactly what he's doing with that ball. And there is no batter that can ever take their mind. The mind can't wander when Jasprit Bumrah's coming in because he's so good. And I don't think I've ever seen anybody who looks so much like taking a wicket pretty much every time they run in. In the same way that you talk about some of the batters we've seen in the last sort of, whenever, being box office. I think, a Jasprit Bumrah spell is just as much box office because he can do things with that ball that, he's just fantastic. Rhubob, WD, hello to you. He says most tests in the UK are good. Have to agree with you, Rhubob. There's not many duff tests in England. The wickets usually yield a result, and with the way England play as well, that tends to, whether it's to their detriment or whether it's to their, they win. There's usually results when England play, and the pitches in the UK do help that. And he says also India will be relieved that their 36 all out was beaten. New Zealand as well. New Zealand 26 all out back in, was it 70 odd years ago? There was one moment in the West Indies innings where they pushed it to square leg, I think it was, and Constas let it go through his legs. And there's a conspiracy theory that the Aussies didn't want wanted the New Zealanders to retain the record, but Constas dropped a catch. He let one through his legs, and he bats like a headless chicken. I was really excited when he came into that lineup, but I quite happy for you to stick with him for the Ashes, because he doesn't look like a Test cricketer in the same way Zach Crawley doesn't. You've got, one of the things we'll finish off talking about, Lucas, is the future of Australian cricket. At the moment, you've got a bowling attack which is decent. To put it, even from my angle, it's decent.
The bowling stops is not a problem. But our big four bowlers can go down right now. They can not easily be replaced, but they can be replaced.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, because you got Stark, who we just talked about. Cummins is obviously tremendous. Hazelwood's his record is excellent, and then obviously Nathan Lyon in the spin department adds that balance and bowls a lot of overs as well, and is a very good spinner. They're all roughly the same age, or they're certainly coming towards the end, aren't they? They're not kind of spring chickens. They are coming towards the end of their Test careers, and they will stop at some stage. And the kind of from the outside, kind of the thoughts move on to where do you go from there? Because that great Australian side, when you had Warne, you had McGrath, you had Ponting, you had Gilchrist, Hayden, Langer, they all finished roughly the same. And then kind of Australia kind of had to then really move quickly in terms of blooding new players. Where does Australian cricket go next to find the wickets?
And from memory, James, it took a long time to find a Stark Hazelwood. I remember an Ashes series where England won the Ashes in Australia, and there they had Hilton House. No disrespect to Ben Hilton House, they had Jackson Bird. It wasn't the same. Just wasn't the same. Now, if those four, because they're around the same age, if they hypothetically went down and then you had to pick four new bowlers for the Ashes, with the bowling stocks, I'm very confident they would win more series than not. The bowling stocks is not a problem for Australia. For me, you've got Fergus O'Neill. I'm disappointed how Cricket Australia are treating him. He's the real deal. He should be playing tests, in my opinion. He's good enough. It's only because he bowls 130, 135. Oh, that's just rubbish, complete rubbish. He's taking wickets in the county games as well. You probably would know that. So he's not just doing it in Australia on Australian pitches. He's doing it in England as well.
I remembered you mentioning him. So at the start of the season in my draft team, Fergus O'Neill was in there because he was playing for Notts and he got a lot of wickets.
Yeah. He's definitely the one for the future. Seam bowler, very accurate. He's a workhorse as well. Bowls a lot of overs for Victoria when he played Shield. So he's definitely one. Lance Morris hasn't played many games last 2 years, been injured, but he's another one that probably should have played in the Indian Test match a few years ago. He got sent to that squad. He got sent to India. They didn't pick him. Right arm, he's a bit like a Stark who bowls 140, 145. Right armour, his stats speak for itself. So they're under the 28 mark. The veterans, because you've got to at least have some veterans. Mick Andrew, I don't know him personally, but he's from South Australia. They helped us win the Shield, first time in 30 years. Prolific bowler over the last 2 years. Again, the same speed as O'Neill. Doggett, again, the same kind of bowler. Joel Paris is a swing bowler. His stats speak for himself. Yeah.
When I was excited about the Big Bash, and I'm not anymore because I think it's not anywhere near as good as it used to be, but I used to watch Joel Paris bowling in that. And fair enough, it was T20, but he swung the ball in late. And I was always really impressed with him.
His stats, the last 2-3 years speak for themselves. He's not, like I said, he's not a 140 bowler, but he can swing a ball. I remember a game against South Australia where WA needed wickets, and all of a sudden he got some reverse swing going, and he was quite hard to stop. Picked up 3-4 wickets. So the bowling stocks are there. Bird, he's still going around. He won't be picked, but he's still going around doing his thing. The one for me that, apart from O'Neill, that I want to see more of is a young Callum Vidal. Now, he's only played 2 games. He played in the Sheffield Shield final at Carlton Oval, the one I went to. He's only 19 years of old. He picked up 4 wickets in his first innings on a pretty hard road. I thought that was impressive. That was really impressive. He bowls 140. That's pretty quick for his age. Played in the Under-19 World Cup. So he's one to watch for me. I think he can go big places, that young boy. Swing bowler as well, so he has the ability. He also bowls a bit like a Mark Wood, bit back of a length, and can catch a batsman out. Caught our top order out, who have been very good last season with his pace. So he's, for me, one to watch when it comes to bowling. But the bowling stocks are fine. They'll win more series than not. If you said to me, who's your 4? I haven't mentioned the spinners. Todd Murphy, I think they're done with Todd Murphy. Kuhneman's our second spinner. I think he would be the straight in light for a line. Richard Kelly is a domestic spinner. He's been very good the last 2 years. I think he'd be our second spinner. But if you ask me, who's the next 4? They all went down. Who's your 4? I'd pick Joel Parrish. I'd pick Lance Morris. I'd pick Fergus O'Neill. And I'd pick Matt Kuhneman. They're the 4 for me.
Okay. I mean, often Test the Ashes cycles, people retire after Ashes series. If everybody stays fit, and they're not going to change age, after we've finished this coming Ashes series down under, are there any bowlers that you think might just think, well, it's time to go?
See, you got the Scott Boland effect. Now, they dropped a line for the 3rd test, and Scott Boland took a hat-trick. It's an absolute pity that we've been very blessed with this bowling cartel. Scott Boland, who played for South Africa and England, he played 100 tests. And if he kept his average at what it is over 100 tests, we might think he's the greatest bowler of all time. But I see Lyon wants to desperately get back to England. He's made that publicly.
Unfinished business. He had his leg injury, didn't he? So
calf injury. So he wants to get back. If Australia are going to go green top pitches, and he doesn't play that series like many games, maybe. We don't in this championship cycle. We don't play in Asia. We go to South Africa. We got Bangladesh, but that's at home. So we don't. I don't think he's going to, go to Asia much the next 2-3 years. So we have one series in India. That's about it. That's 2027 after the Ashes. So I think he's gone by then. Yeah.
The thing with Nathan Lyon, though, is he's not just purely a wicket taker. He provides that solidity at one end, so you can revolve your other 3 bowlers at the far end, and so he has his uses for balance as well as for wicket taking. But I take your point on that. We'll see how it goes, and obviously there's a lot of cricket to be played before we get towards the end of that Ashes series. But it'd be interesting to see, because, as I say, a lot of players use the Ashes as kind of like, I'm going to get to the Ashes, and then we'll kind of review it then. And if it's an amazing Ashes or a bad Ashes, you often see people kind of hanging up their boots after that.
On your point with who would retire, sorry, that's a bit rude me pointing. If Hazelwood keeps getting injured, he might, yeah. So Hazelwood's one to watch. Over the last couple of years, he's getting more injured. Picked up a little niggle in the 3rd test. He didn't bowl as much. So that's one to watch out for. But Stark, definitely not. And Boland, definitely not. And Lyon, definitely not.
You see, that's a cricket injury. For those listening on the podcast later, I apologise. I'm just my index finger on my left hand. I caught a ball into my hands. It was a really good catch, Lucas. You'd have been very proud of me. Right out on the long on boundary, but I took it into my hand.
Oh, come on, James!
And it took my finger with it. And it wasn't until the next morning I thought, "Blimey, this hasn't got any better." Went to the hospital with it, and all they do is bind it to the one next to it. He actually said to me, he said, do you want me to re-break it and set it? And that'll kind of mean that you can't play for probably 2 or 3 weeks. Or are you just happy to kind of like, we'll tie it together. You'll be able to play next weekend. Yeah, just tie it together. I'll play next weekend. And I've got a story to tell on the podcast all these years later. Anyway, in terms of the way Australia have seen the series in the Caribbean, 3-0, it seemed pretty routine. West Indies West Indies bowlers has been good, but the batting's not
Yeah.
not matched it, has it? And the Australians have found it fairly comfortable.
They're bowling, Shamari Joseph, Azari Joseph, Seals. They're good bowlers. They're actually very good bowlers. Unfortunately, they don't get backed up by their batsmen at all. Should have won the first test. The first test was surrounded by controversy with DRS decisions, but their fielding in that first test was pathetic. Second test, Australia was more comfortable, yet West Indies showed fight. But the third test match, they were just pathetic. They gave up. They had in the second innings when they got rolled. I don't want to go too much into it, but when they got rolled, they obviously had a plan for Stark. So they wanted to blast him out of the attack, which is fine. Bowlers have plans for batsmen. Batsmen have plans for bowlers. So the intent was to get on top of Stark. Unfortunately, the execution was absolutely horrible. Concrete feet, T20 styled, ball outside off stump. They wanted to blast it for 6 or 4, and he just had an absolute field day. Mitchell Stark. So did Scott Boland, picked up a hat trick. Peter Siddle was the last one in that Ashes, if you remember that, James. We got Stuart Broad out, LBW. So they've got a lot of problems. They're not. Here's a little stat for you. So in the West Indies Championship, the Red Bull Championship, their 5 top run scorers did not play this series.
Okay.
So that probably just sums it up. Yeah.
I listening to Ian Bishop on the commentary. 2 things really. The first ball of the innings, the second innings. Can Mitchell Stark find any swing? Nick, yes, kind of thing. But then he was talking about, and I can't remember his name. While you were talking, then I was just kind of trying to search through my Twitter feed to see if I could find the young lad's name. But apparently, there's a really big, tall, bean-poley West Indian fast bowler who Ian Bishop knows about fast bowling. Says he's has got real potential. And he actually said on commentary, I hope he kind of picks the brains of a few of the Australian fast bowlers and picks up a bit of advice. And apparently, we talk about how nice Mitchell Stark is. When the Australians were going off to celebrate their 3-0 win and all the rest of it, he was still on the side of the pitch talking to this young lad, this young West Indian cricketer, and passing on some advice. And the cricketer was apparently living off his every word. And we'll see if that helps him in the future. And I do apologize, I can't remember the young lad's name, but he is a find apparently, and we'll probably see him in a West Indies shirt fairly soon. Syed says India dominated 13 out of 15 days, but still lost 2 matches. To be honest, I don't disagree with that, Syed. I think India have more than equaled England for most of the Test series so far. It's just little moments, isn't it? The wins when it's close. Small little things happen, and Ben Stokes' run out of Rishabh Pant, I think, in retrospect, won that test. Trying to get KL Rahul to the century before lunch. I saw Shubman Gill kind of blaming Rishabh Pant almost for the defeat because of that decision. KL Rahul played his part in that. He could have quite easily said to Rishabh, you could see it in Rishabh's eyes. The Rishabh was desperate to get 2 or 3 balls earlier. Rishabh was desperate to get KL Rahul to his century, and KL Rahul surely could have seen it as well. He should have said, calm down, lad. I'm all right on 98 at lunch. Thank you very much. And he could have, I think, it was both of those were at fault for that. You can't blame any individual, I don't think, for losing a test match. It's a team game and you shouldn't single people out. Anyway, and I thank you very much indeed, Lucas, as always. I'm sure we'll see you after the 4th test.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll be here. Just a quick note on the keeping of Jamie Smith. I noticed a technique change. He was fantastic in that 3rd test. The one change that I noticed for me is when he was in the 2nd test, when he was up to the spinner, he was going backwards taking the ball. This time he was going side to side. He was fantastic, and that's great work from Jamie Smith, from learning from his mistakes and executing them. So that was very good.
Well, just before we go, what did you think to Jarrell? Because he got a lot of plaudits for his glove work, but kind of let about 300 byes past him.
Yeah, it's
300, by the way, was an exaggeration. It was more like 32, I think.
Yeah, but if you want to be harsh, he is a professional wicketkeeper in there. But Lords with the slope, moving seam ball, it's extremely hard. I've practiced I've kept to a pink ball myself, and that's swinging everywhere. It's very hard. So I can't blame him too much. But at the end of the day, yes and no. Yes, he is a professional keeper. He should be doing a little bit better. but it's his first time, first experience. Maybe get him some slack. Having said that, he did play some warm-up games, so maybe it could have been a little bit better.
Absolutely. Just one more comment come in. Ishvaran, when will he get an opportunity? Well, we'll see, Syed. We'll see, because India haven't named their squad, I don't think, or well, they've got their squad, obviously, but England named their team like 2 or 3 days before the match. Shubman Gill takes a piece of paper out to the toss, and kind of is more traditional in that way. So we'll probably have to wait until the toss side to see if Ishvaran gets a game. And thank you again to Lucas. Thank you to Match Bingo for coming on board as a sponsor, new sponsor of the Cricket Badger podcast. Download their app. Quote Cricket 200 and you can get a 200% boost on your first deposit. And thanks to seatfrog.com. As always, quote Cricket Frog and get £5 off your booking and get yourself upgraded to first class as well. And 2 fantastic sponsors. Thank you very much to them. And we will see you next time, Cricket Badgers around the world. Enjoy yourselves out there. I'm actually, I think, hopefully back on Friday with the pod, but I'm not going to announce that just yet. Next week as well, I'm going to do a podcast with a couple of West Indians about the travails of the West Indies cricket team and what they would do to change the world, basically, and trying to take the West Indies and make them better. But that is coming up next week. See you soon on the Cricket Badger podcast. Cheers, everybody.